Hello and welcome to episode 125 of the Matty B Files. I am your host, Matt Bigelow, coming at you from the Ogikubo studio in Tokyo, Japan. This is, like I said, episode 125. We're going to do a year in review with the various bands that I've interviewed. The big part of this podcast is interviewing bands from all over the world. And these are usually kind of underground bands or bands that perform in clubs and release their music independently. They're not these, I don't even know what professional musicians are anymore. And I've been playing music a lot my whole life, and ever since the music industry collapsed, I've always been interested to see how people approach their music, how they sell it, how they tour it, how they record it. And what I've come to realize is that there's a massive amount of new music available, and most of it's just available at your fingertips or a voice request now. People just say, hey, I want to hear this music, and then the technology starts playing it. To compile the list today, I had to go back through compact discs, as they're called, lying around my apartment underneath boxes, and I would open up a box and discover a whole trove of CDs that I'd never really listened to. And earlier this year, I'd switched over to a Mac from PC. Doing this kind of stuff on Mac is much easier than PC. The PC is constantly like, no, you can't do that. You need to update. Oh no, your CD drive isn't going to open now, and blah, blah, blah. So I switched over to Mac, and then I didn't transfer all over these files. So spent all day on my tatami mats rooting through CDs and uploading them into my new computer. It's crazy how good the technology is now compared to before. I mean, seriously, you can just stream. You can just go on, like this podcast, for example. You just opened your phone or whatever, hit the play button, and boom, you got this streaming technology. Going through CD, I even broke a few CD cases as the media demands of me. Cracking here, and then case breaks open there. You open up one CD case, and like there's a different CD inside. Like the problems of the technology persist long after the technology has had its use. I really am of the belief that CDs aren't the way to go. They really aren't. They suck. Fucking sucks. I think bands you should be able to like go onto a band's website, pay them 100 yen or $1 or something, and just stream the technology directly from them. Have a payment processor on hand instead of all of this garbage from CDs. Oh, Jesus. Fuck CDs. I'm drinking I'm going to have a couple of beers with this podcast, and I invite you to join me with a beverage of your choice. We can take a sip in 3. If you have a beverage ready, you can join us in 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, of course, you can get my music at MatthewPMBigelow.com. You can stream it, my podcasts off of iTunes. Streaming really is the way to go, isn't it? I'm doing this in a new format. I'm not sure how this is going to work, but we're going to begin. All right. So the year 2017, one of the first interviews I did with a musician was with Takashi Umemiya, who's been on the podcast a couple of times. And he runs a roots rock reggae band. Most of the band has been on the podcast. Vera has been on the podcast. That Finnish guy, with the big beard, he's been on the podcast. And I think their drummer's French, so he'll probably never be on the podcast. Right, Patetti? Will he be on the podcast? I don't know. Does he speak English? I don't care. French people, they're all right until you speak French with them. Then they get real snooty real quick. So we're going to begin with Takashi Umemiya's song called Rebel's Revenge, I'm Still Alive. We're going to drop it in, and then we will continue. So thank you for joining me. Let's begin. All right. And that is Takashi Umemiya and the Comrades, the song Rebel's Revenge, I'm Still Alive. His first interview with me was on episode 43, but recently we also did another one with his friend Tom, promoting their shows that they sometimes do called Beach House. Check them out. They're good. They're good fun. Nice little local content there. Tokyo is such a big city. It's really hard to get together sometimes because people are driving and people are coming along and you got to meet in these locations. But when we come together and then have a big jizz fest. The next song we're going to do is with Cameron Lee. Cameron Lee, when I was growing up in Canada, we always had this idea about California being like the kind of a paradise, the place where you could go start anew and the weather's always good, California dreaming, California girls. These days, California is like Silicon Valley and crazy liberalism and San Francisco has billions of dollars, but people are shitting all over the streets and shooting up drugs and daylight on the streets. It seems rather dystopic, but Cameron Lee reminds me of that California spirit from my youth. He has this. I have really blonde hair, and it's been going thin since I was 17, and I'm 38. You know what it's like to be losing your hair for longer than you've been alive? Like, not been alive, but like more than half the time you've been alive. And Cameron Lee obviously does not have this problem. He has this huge head of blonde hair, and he's let it grow down to his waist, and he has these anti-liberal hats and T-shirts that he wears. When Trump was being called literally Hitler, he made a really cheesy T-shirt that said literally Hitler on it. And Gavin McInnes, of course, I'm going by Michael Malice's pronunciation. Gavin McInnes wore the shirt on the Alex Jones show. So that's pretty nuts, but it's good publicity. Whether you like Alex Jones or not, a lot of people watch his show. So he got out there, and he plays in a band called Cry. I wasn't able to find the song, so I'm going to go back and play a song that I actually really like of his called The River. It has a nice combination of like horns and not techno, but synthetic music that really blend together very well. And yeah, we're going to do that. So Cameron Lee, that aspect of California still lives strongly, still beats hard in the chest of Cameron Lee. Let's play this song called The River, and we'll come back and play some more.
It's all a dream, just like they said it'd be. Oh, it don't feel real, but it's calling me. I hear the lights fly by, no directions home, but it feels alright, like it did before. Sometimes it's close, sometimes it pulls away, but I just float on by, it's all the same, yeah. I'm in the river, let it flow, can't hold the bank, no, just let go. Together, kinda take it for granted how it's just automatic, gonna flow forever. Now I'm one with everything. Flow of time slows down for me, yeah. Sometimes it's close, sometimes it pulls away, just float on by, it's somewhere far from home, far from home. Sometimes it's close, sometimes it pulls away, but I just float on by, it's all the same. I'm in the river, let it flow. Can't hold the bank, no, just let it go. The water washes over everything. Can no one tell me where it leads?
All right. And that is Cameron Lee, The River. You're never going to hear another song like that. That's highly original right there. Yeah, I wonder how he's doing. I wonder how his t-shirts are going. He's kind of an entrepreneur guy, you know? He's red-pilled, as he likes to say. I don't know if he likes to say it. Maybe he told me that, and I'm not sure. You can out-red-pilled people, can't you? Or is it like outing somebody out of the closet? Some gay guy. There's this new beer that's been released called, it's another release by the Yato or Yahoo Brewery called Kimi Biru, Boku Biru Kimi Biru. And this one's a rye pale ale. It's quite nice. I suggest it. It's nice for a session ale. And this is definitely a session, what we're doing right now. All right. Next, we're going to rock it up a bit. These next three songs are going to swell together like some sort of international concert that you never really had to go to enjoy. We're going to go into J. Ken. J. Ken was on episode 55. We recorded this in Shimbashi. Sometimes we run into each other. So we run into each other in like the middle of town, or he's recently moved to near my place, and we bumped into each other in the convenience store once, just like by accident. It's this weird case where we like to meet up sometimes for a beer, but we have this tendency to bump into each other. At first I thought he was like waiting for me, but then I started bumping into him too, and I was like, whoa, maybe he thinks I'm waiting for him. I don't know. But Jay Ken from Boston, he can do the Boston accent like me right now. I'm from Boston. I have a Boston accent. How do you like those apples? Jay Ken is running a band in town called the Midnight Snakes. Kind of like me, Jay plays again, off again. He loves his punk rock. And this Midnight Snakes band has like the kind of a 50s musical vibe to it at times. I really like the first song off of their latest album, the EP release. The song is called Sister Novacaine, and it rocks. It has like nice little tricks. Maybe that's why it reminds me of a bit of a musical. It has like some tricks in the melody or transitions between segments that really complement the song as a whole. Because it's pretty straightforward, but then it will do something like a musical would that it's a little, what do they say? They mix it up a little bit in the mix. It has a twist. It's a mix with a twist. So let's begin. This is J. Ken, Midnight Snakes. I was about to say Midnight Steaks. J. Ken, Midnight Snakes. Sister Novacaine, he was on the episode 50. He might be recording again, and it would be fun to get him back on the podcast. So if Jay, you're listening, let's do another one, brav. Let's do another one, brav. You will walk around Tokyo, and I will walk around Tokyo at the same time, and we'll bump into each other and then do a podcast. All right, let's do this.
boulders with a razor wire. And now weaving watermen around this town. Long lost poets and no renown. I know you got a great mistake or two left in you. Yeah, you do. So come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah, live a little just to kill the pain. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah, just a little bit of Novacaine tonight. Oh yeah. Now if you wake up still drunk, knowing you're a station face down in a bowl of rice. As cause with the times roll, then you got run over. It was just a bad throw at the dice. Now every passenger seat in Thousand League City has her imprint still in place. She said dreams blossom at night, in the morning she's gone without a trace. And now we've been wandering around this town. Long lost books and no renown. But you got a great mistake or two left in you. Yeah, you do, yeah, you do. So come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah, live a little just to kill the pain. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah, just a little dose of Novacaine tonight. So come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah, live a little just to kill the pain. Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah, just a little bit of Novacaine. Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah, live a little just to kill the pain. Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah, just a little bit of Novacaine. A little dose just to kill the pain. A little dose of that Novacaine tonight.
Yeah, boy. We're going to get right into the next one. The next one features Al and Tosh from the now defunct band Sunset Drive. Back in the day, about 8 years ago now, maybe longer, Sunset Drive was one of those bands that started really promoting gaijin rock in Tokyo, fronted by Al and Tosh. Al sometimes comes back to Japan. He has a family now, wisely so, and lives in New Zealand, also probably wisely so. And Tosh, I think, is also maybe, I can't go into that, but their band Sunset Drive was really fun. They had like a garage rock feel. This one is called It's All You. If you want to listen to Alan Tosh, it's episode 55 of the Matty B Files podcast here. We're going to get right into it. Let's do it.
Sleep, I'm thinking too deeply about the stupid things I said. Could I leave it behind? Could I press rewind for just an hour or two? Even in the daytime, even in the night, it's all you. It's all you. Even in the daytime, even in the night, it's all you. It's all you. to a place you know I've never been. Take me to the place nobody else has seen. Even in the daytime, even in the night, it's all you. It's all you. Even in the daytime, even in the night, it's all you. It's all you. Even in the daytime, even in the night, it's all you. It's all you. Even in the daytime, even in the night, it's all you. It's all you. It's all you. It's all you.
Yeah. And that's that song. I remember the drummer. He was just like this guy who loved to beat the shit out of his drum kit. Just quarter notes. And he had this one tooth that jutted out at an angle, and he would always open his eye, and he just was like this really kind of a bigger guy, like not fat, just bigger, you know, like maybe he had some muscle. I don't know. I'd never licked his tits. But he would just bash the shit out of his drum set, and his tooth would be jutting out of his face as he just... It was really fun, actually. That's what I'm trying to say here. That was a really fun band. But they learned to call it quits. I've been doing that a lot, you know. I was hosting an open mic, and then it went well, and then the attendance dropped off, and I was like, okay, time to move on. Like, we had great nights, and then attendance started falling off after about 2.5 years. Move on. So everything, I like that idea that you don't have to commit to, maybe you like have some things you're really committed to. Like I really like playing with the Dead Sea Dropouts. As long as that keeps going, I'll keep playing with it. Keep playing with that concept. It's more of a concept now. And but at the same time, it's like you can have a bunch of short-term projects. It's kind of a more liberating idea instead of I want to build up an entire empire, you know, like how many empires can you build? Maybe not so many, but how many short-term successful projects can you have? Quite a few, as long as you set up the parameters. You know, making money off of it's the tough part, though. Getting people to shell out dollars. Found a way a little bit with the donation model with the Dead Sea Dropouts. Most people open their wallets after we play and happily give us money for playing our music. And that's really cool. It's not a lot of money, but the fact that we don't really even need to ask for it, people just come up and start giving us money. That's really cool. Because it's a nice exchange. It's a nice exchange when you get some money. All right, next we're going to take a look at Royal Bravada. I remember these guys. These are like a bunch of Italians playing a quite heavy blues music. You'll feel it once I start playing it. I remember we did this podcast outside in Roppongi, Dirty Roppongi, the Pongers, and they were getting chicken from the convenience store, and they're eating it, and they're like, bueno, 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 bueno. And I'm like, oh, wow. They really like the fast food over here. Japan has excellent food. I'm not going to lie. A lot of the times it's possible to get deep fried bullshit with cabbage on the side, but even then it's still pretty good. The only time I had a meal recently that was terrible was at the Mermaid in Akasaka Mitsuke, which is like a British pub. Terrible. Ugh. I would have rather had convenience store food. But anyways, I digress. Royal Bravada, these guys were really fun. Good energy from these folks. Royal Bravada, I hope you're doing well. I remember they were saying in Italy, some scuttlebutt, is that a lot of people go to shows there in the big cities, and there might be like government incentives to provide money to promote music on a local level, which is always... I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because on the one hand, it's like, oh, this is music approved by the state. And then on the other hand, it's like, well, at least some music gets out there. But at the same time, the market is the ultimate decider, usually, of what is a successful product and what is not. But it's nice to see some investment in the arts. I mean, if you're giving billions of dollars in subsidies to the oil corporations, why not give a few $1,000s to some begging musicians? Maybe they can buy some pancakes with it. All right, let's begin.
Coming over. Tell me what if this is not real? What would you do? Everything you knew is not real. What would you do? Tell me what if this is not real? What would you do? Everything you knew is not real. I wanna be hypnotized by your side. I want to forget the time. I wanna be hypnotized by your side. I want to forget the time. I wanna be hypnotized by your side. I want to forget the time. I wanna be hypnotized by your side. I want to forget the time. And I don't if I can lose it all. And I don't if I can lose it all. Lights are glowing in Darkside backyard. Stay with my head in my hands. Woman sitting behind the doom. He's waiting. Words are collapsing to fuck our steps. We walk a veil of the thoughts with no name. More I need and less I want to. More I need and less I want. Tell me what if this is not real? What would you do? Everything you knew is not real. What would you do? Tell me what if this is not real? What would you do? Everything you knew is not real. I wanna be hypnotized by your side. I want to forget the time. I wanna be hypnotized by your side. I want to forget the time. I wanna be hypnotized by your side. I want to forget the time. I wanna be hypnotized by your side. I want to forget the time. War games and ice cold atmosphere. Leave all the rest 'cause the past was not real. I feel inside, don't wanna be over and over and over. And I don't if I can lose it all. And I don't if I can lose it all. Don't if I can lose it all. And I don't if I can lose it all.
Yeah, I love that kind of music. Sometimes it feels like so meatheady, like it's just a bunch of dudes like going bop 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 dop 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 dop. But then it gets really tight when they after the break there they go boom, like all at the same time, no lag between them at all. It's like, oh, these guys have chops. They just don't need to display it all the time. They groove. So I thought that was a interesting 3 songs to put together. Midnight Snakes, Jay Ken from Boston and Tokyo, Al and Tosh. Al is in New Zealand and Tosh is now in Japan, and Royal Bravada from Italy, who were performing in Japan where I met them in Tokyo. So those in chronological order within a podcast within the first half of the year of 2017. That old cliche, bringing you those 3 songs together as you would normally expect. All right. I almost totally screwed that last part up, but I managed to trip over the finish line like some 6-year-old girl on his hopscotch, tripping over her skip rope. All right. What? Next, we're going to go to Romania. Come with me to Romania, where the vagabonds rule, yet everything seems quaint. This is We Singing Colors, and I keep up with them, actually. This is a style of music that I quite enjoy because it's on the folkier side. I love the previous type of indie rock that we were listening to, but I also enjoy sometimes a folk pop, but without like the pop feeling from Boring People. These people really like to Blur, if you imagine like Park Life, like that type of pop music. The We Singing Colors is similar to that. This song is called Out of the City, and they're a duo, and I managed to play some percussion with them when they're in Tokyo, and I've contemplated going to Romania to check it out, and then, I don't know, being a backup drummer for We Singing Colors. It's one of those things that you just kind of think about when you're on a packed train going, where else could I be right now? Oh, I know, playing drums for We Singing Colors in Romania. In Bucharest. Is that Romania? I don't know. It's in the Europe somewhere, where people dance in the fields with their folk guitars, singing We Singing Color songs, namely this song called Out of the City.
Was I going all these years? Or was I traveling all this time? What were those words I said to you? Are we sure this was just a lie?
And there you have it. Folk pop from Romania. From Romania. Where the Roma roam. In and out of the cities. I used to work in a restaurant after I graduated from university. And the restaurateur was a Hungarian guy. Not Romanian, I get it. But he said that when he was an older guy, this was like 12 years ago, and he was like 55, 60 back then. And he said when he was living in Budapest, he would sometimes date gypsy girls, but they were poor, so they had to tie their bras with wires. They didn't have clasps, they had wires. So him and his friend joked that when they ever dated a gypsy girl, they would like give each other pliers so that they could undo the bra of the gypsy girl that they were dating. I know they're called Roma now, but 50 years ago they were called gypsies. Oh man, and in honor of my ex-boss with his pliers, for that story I'm going to keep the word gypsy in play due to the outdatedness of the story itself. We can go back to Roma now. I was in Rome. I was not in Rome, but I remember being in Berlin Station and just being surrounded by Roma, like trying to get me to sign their stuff and distract me. They're pretty annoying. But they're persecuted, so let's give them all of our money from the UN. All right, sorry, I'm not going to get into that. Next, we're going to go to the Living Deads. The Living Deads are a kind of a post-punk rockabilly psychobilly band, and they're a couple, good looking couple actually, very like the drummer is he sometimes plays guitar. I can't remember their names. It was like a year and a half ago. He really looks like an American kind of a guy with like the plaid shirt that he wears on stage, and just that kind of 50s American face. I don't know if you can visualize it. And then the bassist, she plays a upright double bass, is like, she has all these tattoos all over her body, and like she wears fishnets and things like that. But they both are fantastic musicians, and they have this really interesting take on how to do psychobilly or rockabilly or folk. The show that I watched them, they opened for like a very famous Japanese psychobilly band or rock band. I can't remember who they were, but it was a rainy day and they had like trucks outside the stadium, and the stadium was pretty full. There must have been a couple hundred people there. And even though it was raining, people still came out to see this band, and they'd never really been in Japan before. And they were like, they were deep involved in like this Tokyo, Japan rock and roll subculture, but they were still like, I really want to go to Harajuku. And I'm like, whoa, going to Harajuku is like going to Times Square, you know? So I understand, but it's like, I would way rather be deeply embedded in a New York punk band scene than go to Times Square. But it was kind of funny how eager they were to experience the kind of tourist life. I don't mean to slam them or anything. It just struck me as kind of funny at the time, because I really don't go to those touristy places anymore. I'd rather avoid them. But anyways, I digress. We're going to play a song from the Living Deads. This is off of one of their albums. The song is called Fixation. I'm choosing these songs because they're not like some of the typical songs that would normally get played. And I want to try to curate a unique sounding playlist based off of chronological ordering of my podcast from the first half of 2017.
Fixation, now I'm wasting. Let's say I never had twisted it all inside my head. Obsession, I must confess some. So now that shutting down, locking all the doors, keeps demons hanging around. Resistance in my intention. Try to drop the storyline on the
All right. So that brings us to the end of the first half of 2017. I know that this has been a rather obscure journey from people from the Philippines and Japan with Takashi Umemiya, California with Cameron Lee, Boston with Jay Ken, New Zealand, sorry guys, New Zealand with Alan Tosh, Italy with Royal Bravada, Romania with We Singing Colors, and finally, of no fixed address, USA, the Living Deads. They travel around in a camper, a RV last time I checked, going from town to town, playing show to show. Yeah, fuck yeah. But I have the bonus section, bonus one. I'm going to play a song from a band. I'm not sure where they are, what they're doing anymore, but this is the Ron Artist Family Band. When I was in Hawaii, in Oahu, I went to Haleiwa, and I'm not going to say the fucking names correctly. I went to Haleiwa, and I was walking around, and, you got all the people lining up for ice and things like that. And I went and got some poke or pokey. Really delicious, like avocado with tuna, and the tuna's raw, and they got all these soy sauce flavors in it. It's fantastic. And I was walking around, and I heard like this music coming from like this weird house, and the house had all these broken surfboards that had been repainted or repurposed for art. And I go in, and the house there has been like, there's like a bar, but instead of a bunch of drinks behind the bar, there are a bunch of kids like 13, 12, 11, 15 playing music, and they're playing music really well. And I think they write the songs themselves. I sat down next to this girl. She was maybe like, that's a black family, and she was maybe 12, I think, and she had yellow hard floppy disks on her ears as earrings, like one on each ear, and she was painting a photo of, she was replicating a photo by painting it, and it was Johnny Cash performing at Folsom Prison Blues, and these kids are just ripping it on these instruments, and I'm like, where am I? So I sat around and I watched them play, and they're switching instruments, like goes from the drums to the guitar to the bass, and then the singer comes out and they switch vocals and I'm pretty sure they have free reign to do what they want, because I've listened to child musicians, and it seems like they're very coached. Like, no, this is the way you like the producer comes in and makes the child appealing to the camera or something like this. But their father, Ron Artist, was an amazing musician apparently, who played with Michael Jackson, etc. I think he died, and then the family was left like 9 kids to like one mother, and the only thing that they knew how to do was to play music. So they release all of these songs, and you go to their house and you listen to their music, and you buy some CDs, and that supports their music. But I think that fell through recently, because I think that the house is no longer the house of music, unfortunately. So I'm not sure what they're doing, but their approach to music was so original. And okay, when you listen to this track, please understand that these are literally kids playing this music. This music is not being played by professionals. They're kids. Let's begin.
The surf bus drives, and on board it are beautiful lives. The wheels go round and round to multiple towns. exciting like this. Never you won't forget. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. You go for how far you know. Or driving the surface, you'll meet people from all around the world. Some from Indianapolis, and some from Australia. Some from Spain, some from California, some from Wichita, oh, some from wherever. But they all have special kinds of art. Oh, 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 checking all the scenery, making your life memories, riding in the sun bus to see if you'll see any turtles. Oh yeah, oh 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 oh, oh 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 oh, yeah yeah, oh oh oh, oh 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 oh. So tell me if you love me, everything that you have witnessed, all the beautiful sights you've seen so far.
And those are 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds. The reason why I think that they wrote it themselves is the lyrics are very honest, and I don't think that that's how adults would approach the lyrics. And at the end, it just kind of immediately ends. It doesn't fade off or something like that. So, wow. I hope they're doing good, because they seemed like such a cool family, always playing music and jamming out and releasing songs and doing their best. Hopefully they can understand this new economy and how to maybe make some money off of it. They could do live streaming on YouTube and get super chats or something like that. Oh, that's totally possible. All right. Is that the last one? Or we got two more? Hold on a second. We got bonus 2. We are going to do, two more. The next one is from Mike Rogers. Actually, I wanted to include him in on the compilation here. He is he's a famous radio DJ who runs a morning show out of Tokyo FM, I believe. And he always brings in, he always famous people go on his show and he talks to them about music. So I'm interviewing people like We Singing Colors, but he's interviewing people like sometimes the Goo Goo Dolls or something like that. So quite a different level. But he came on the podcast and we talked about, we did a profile, and he mentioned that he produced and had a lot to do with a movie called Ghost Roads, a rock and roll ghost story. And this won a lot of awards, and he went on to become like a judge on a bunch of panels internationally at some pretty big events. I can't remember them right now. I'm just remembering off the cuff of my head. So I'm going to put Mike Rogers in here because he's kicking ass and taking names. We're going to take a song from the soundtrack from Ghost Roads, a rock and roll ghost story. This song is called Walk on the Ghost Road, and it's by Mr. Pan Walk on the Ghost Road by Mr. Pan and the Screamin' Telsters. And that's on Mike Rogers' movie, the soundtrack for Ghost Roads, a rock and roll ghost story. It's about a guy who goes in to get an amp for his band, and he from a pawn shop, and the amp is haunted with a ghost, and the ghost tries to get in the guitarist's head and tell him what to do. Maybe he can become famous, or who knows how he handles the corruption of the haunted amp. But it's a super fucking awesome premise. So anyways, thanks, Mike. Mike helped me out a couple of months ago when I was going through an online controversy, and stepped in and lent a helping hand. Thanks, Mike. As always, you're a good man. We are going to finish this off. May as well finish this beer while I'm at it. Podcasting. This is called Swing le Curupira. This is by a band called Zaッハトルテ. And this goes back to like 12 years ago when I first came to Japan. I became good friends with the owner of an antique store that also doubled as a bar at night. So it was called the Antique and Junk. And at night, at about 5 p.m., the owner, who was a total drunk, like hardcore alcoholic, also a black belt in kendo, he used to beat up Yakuza, who would challenge him in the street. Crazy guy. Anyways, one of his bar staff guys, a guy named Chiharu, he took me out to one of my first nights in Shimokitazawa, and he introduced me to this band, and I had no idea who they were, but he got me in at a discounted price, and the event was really fucking cool, and I've never forgotten it. And just to bring us back to the beginning of when I came to Japan, and now where I'm technically at the very utmost present where I am in Japan. This can tie it off for me. I don't know if it's going to tie it off for you. This song is called Swing le Curupira. thank you very much for listening. So this has been episode 125 of the Matt EB Files. What I'm calling it now is Japan's #1 podcast, of course. Where else are you going to find a podcast like this? Don't forget to tell your friends. Don't forget to like and subscribe. When you do like something like this through your pod player or from whatever device you're listening to, I really don't give a shit about the likes or the numbers. But what I've realized is that when like a few people like it, it somehow targets an algorithm, or the algorithm will begin to notice that people are liking it. And it really just helps to like get it out to a few more people. So if you've liked this podcast, then hit the like button, and hopefully some other people will get it out there, because it's getting stranger and stranger trying to share these things these days. We're kind of, these algorithms are hovering above us and streaming through the air, kind of like saying, if you do the wrong thing, well, the algorithm will ban you, and what are you going to do about it? You don't know, because the terms of service are never clear. So please like and subscribe. You can also go to MatthewPMBigelow.com for all your streaming needs, and go through. I also do jamcasts. If you like jamcasts, it's when Nicholas Firegood and I mic up a drum set and a guitar, and we just hit the record button and go ad-lib a few different styles, and it's usually pretty fun. It's really creative, and we have to cope a lot with each other because we're not really sure what the other one is doing, or when one person wants to change, and we have to learn how to change on the spot. Anyways, super fun. Don't forget to check out those previous episodes. Episode 43 with Takashi Umemiya, Rebel's Revenge, the reggae. Episode 45, Cameron Lee. Episode 50, Jay Ken. Episode 55, Alan Tosh. Episode 56, Royal Bravada. Episode 53, going back? I don't know. Is that a mistake? Perhaps. We Singing Colors. Episode 64, The Living Deads. And don't forget the Ron Artist Family Band. Don't forget to check out the Ghost Roads Rock and Roll Ghost Story. And if you can find it, it's pretty cool. The Zaッハトルテ, Swing le Curupira. My name is Matthew Bigelow, Matt Bigelow, your host for this podcast. I'm coming at you from the Yogi Kubo studio in Tokyo, Japan. The sun has long since set, but I can see some street lights and some apartment building lights and a rather large advertisement lit up in the distance coming in through my windows. Have a great one, everyone. See you next time. Boosh.
This beer is really weird. What? This beer. This beer is really weird. It's like just weird.